I feel like it was like that for a lot of us. It's easier for me than it was for Tom because I wasn't playing a character that had already existed in the previous film.
And I get comments from people being like, oh, I introduced my grandchildren to your show, like I found you through Daily Wire. My mom is like my biggest fan on YouTube. Definitely took this.
Snow White isn't just a fairy tale, it's a cinematic revolution that forever changed animation and storytelling. Since Disney's groundbreaking 1937 film, its unforgettable songs, breathtaking visuals, and timeless themes of innocence, love, and redemption have mesmerized audiences for generations. But lately, this beloved classic has become the center of intense debate. With countless spin-offs, adaptations, and stage productions paying tribute to what many call the greatest fairy tale ever written, one big question looms: have modern reimaginings honored what Walt Disney himself called the perfect story? Or have they strayed too far? Right now, two actresses stand at the heart of the controversy. On one side, we have Rachel Zegler, a rising star with a powerful voice and a fresh, modern perspective. On the other, Brett Cooper, an unexpected challenger from a politically charged platform, determined to stick to tradition. And here's where the clash gets even more intense. One actress believes that Snow White's 1937 romantic innocence feels outdated, even creepy by today's standards. So what's really happening? Is this just another remake, or is Hollywood rewriting history? Let's break it all down.
Like seeing yourself for the first time in full Snow White drag.
I love that description. It's perfect. Oh my god, well, when you get to wear Sandy Powell, first of all, insane. And then you get to be lit by Mandy Wall.
The battle over Snow White isn't just about a remake, it's a full-blown cultural showdown. On one side, we have Rachel Zegler bringing a modern, bold take to the classic princess. On the other, Brett Cooper, who embraces the timeless magic of the Brothers Grimm tale and sees herself as the guardian of its original spirit. Their clash has exploded into a heated debate, igniting social media firestorms and sparking deeper questions. Should fairy tales evolve with modern values, or should they remain untouched as treasured pieces of storytelling history? This isn't just about a movie. It's a high-stakes battle for both Disney and the Daily Wire. Disney faces relentless fan backlash over what critics call woke overhauls of beloved classics, while the Daily Wire, caught in internal struggles and financial tension, has placed its bets on a counter-narrative. Rumors of secret office surveillance, budget drains, and forced departures swirl around the controversy, making this feel less like a fairy tale and more like a Hollywood thriller. The divide is clear. Some praise Zegler's feminist reinterpretation, calling it a necessary update for a new generation. Others slam it as disrespectful to the very essence of Snow White. Meanwhile, Cooper's nostalgic approach is hailed as a refreshing return to tradition, or dismissed as nothing more than a political stunt. So, the big question remains: which Snow White will stand the test of time? Should this legendary tale be reshaped for today, or does Cooper's faithful portrayal better capture what made the original so magical? One thing's for sure, the war over Snow White is far from over.
I did. It was so fun. Oh my god, as a huge Disney fan, it was so exciting to finally get to go to D23.
Yeah.
I live on the East Coast, so I was never able to go, and also tickets sell out like in a flash. So it was so exciting to go, and my mom was super jealous because my mom is the reason I'm.
This isn't just a rivalry between two actresses. It's a cultural tug of war over how we honor the past and reshape the stories that defined us. Buckle up, because we're diving deep into a clash that's redefining what it means to reimagine a classic in the 21st century. From the moment Snow White sang "I'm wishing" into that woodland well, she became an icon of cinematic history. But Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs wasn't just a big moment for Disney, it was a turning point for the entire film industry. As the first ever full-length cel-animated film, it proved that animation wasn't just for children. It could be mainstream, it could be art, and it could be legendary. Its success paved the way for Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and other beloved classics that defined the Disney brand for generations. But what makes Snow White truly timeless isn't just its groundbreaking animation, it's the story itself. At a time when the world was struggling with war and economic turmoil, Snow White embodied innocence, kindness, and unwavering optimism. She offered audiences an escape, a world where good always triumphed over evil, and where the power of love and friendship could break even the darkest curses. But in today's world, some argue that Snow White's classic portrayal feels outdated. Others insist that changing it means losing what made it special in the first place. So, the question remains, should timeless stories be reimagined to reflect modern values, or preserved as they were meant to be? The battle over Snow White's legacy is far from over, and as Hollywood pushes forward with new interpretations, one thing is certain: this fairy tale is at the center of a very real cultural storm.
When a creator has pitched you a great story, and you've given them the ability to go out and tell that story, you've given them the resources, the money, the tools, the place to tell that story. That story.
Disney poured his heart and soul into perfecting Snow White's story, crafting it into the ultimate fairy tale. And it paid off. The film became an instant cultural phenomenon, setting a gold standard for animators and storytellers for generations to come. With every re-release, theme park attraction, and home video edition, audiences rediscovered the magic that made it so iconic. But beneath that timeless charm, modern audiences began asking tough questions. Did Snow White's passive nature reduce her to a damsel in distress? Did the prince's role reinforce outdated gender norms? Were the dwarfs simply comedic sidekicks, or did they cross into offensive caricatures? As these debates take center stage, one thing is clear: Snow White is no longer just a fairy tale. It's a battleground for what classic storytelling should be in the modern era. So, is this an evolution of a beloved tale, or is Hollywood losing sight of what made it special in the first place? The answer may change the future of Disney forever.
He was in the boxing ring, and Howard Cosell, who was then a famous announcer for ABC Sports, introduced him. And I was asked at some point to get Mr. Sinatra Listerine. We're at Madison Square Garden. It's not like there's a Listerine store at Madison Square Garden. So I dutifully ran out and found a drugstore of some sort. This is before CBS. This is 45.
These questions simmered beneath the surface for decades, but the debate exploded when Disney began remaking its animated classics. Beauty and the Beast sparked conversations by expanding Belle's agency and backstory. The Little Mermaid reignited discussions on representation and authenticity. But amid all these changes, no one could have predicted that one fairy tale would ignite the biggest controversy yet, all thanks to Rachel Zegler. Zegler's comments and Greta Gerwig's vision for a recrafted Snow White suddenly turned this beloved classic into the center of a heated cultural debate. What was once a simple tale of a princess seeking shelter with dwarves after fleeing her wicked stepmother is now a battleground for modern feminism, sensitivity politics, and corporate branding. For some, breathing new life into old tales is essential to keeping them relevant. But for others, this isn't just an update. It's an attack on the very magic that made Snow White an icon in the first place. So, is this a necessary evolution or a dangerous rewrite of Hollywood history? One thing is certain: the legacy of the world's first Disney princess has never been more at risk.
Friend, and she's the one who sent me the casting notice and said, "Thank me when you're famous." It's the craziest thing ever that it came true in that weird way, and that's why I bring her everywhere, and she's the best ever. But yeah, I put myself on tape. It's the worst tape you've ever seen in your life. I have no idea how I got the part still, and it's being used to teach future casting directors at NYU.
When Greta Gerwig, the acclaimed writer-director of Lady Bird and Little Women, was brought in to modernize Snow White, fans were hopeful. Given her reputation for literary sensitivity and emotional depth, many expected she would treat the beloved fairy tale with care. But then came the reports of radical rewrites and controversial casting choices, and suddenly the internet erupted with speculation. When Rachel Zegler's dismissive comments about the 1937 classic surfaced, what was once an exciting remake turned into an ideological battleground. Would Snow White continue to represent innocence and hope, or would she be reshaped into a modern figure that strayed too far from the original's heart? Zegler, a charismatic and immensely talented actress, skyrocketed to fame thanks to her stunning performance in Steven Spielberg's West Side Story. Initially, she seemed like an inspired choice for Disney's new Snow White, especially for those eager to break away from the damsel in distress narrative. But the controversy began almost immediately. In multiple interviews, Zegler openly criticized the 1937 film, calling aspects of it creepy and outdated. She dismissed the idea of Snow White waiting for a prince to save her, saying it didn't align with her vision of an independent woman. But what truly set the internet on fire was when she admitted that she had only watched the original once and hated it. That was all it took. A wave of outraged fans rushed to defend what they saw as a treasured piece of cinema, accusing Zegler of being dismissive and ungrateful for such a massive opportunity. Meanwhile, Disney pushed forward, promising that their new Snow White would be a leader, not a love-struck princess. In many ways, this version of Snow White was always going to be different, a modern heroine shaped by today's ideals. Someone who questioned old-school fairy tale tropes from the very beginning. But the real question remains, is this an exciting new take, or a complete betrayal of what made Snow White magical in the first place? The storm is far from over.
Jacqueline, if they play Getaway Car or Maroon, she's on crisis watch. Not only did she play Getaway Car, she also played Maroon. I was having a breakdown in the audience at MetLife Stadium.
Intro on paper, this remake might have seemed like a step toward progress, or at least an evolution of a beloved classic. But for those deeply attached to the nostalgic magic of the original, Zegler's blunt dismissal of the film's core charms felt like an outright rejection rather than an update. Critics argue that there's a way to add depth to Snow White without stripping away the sentimental heart that made her the archetype of Disney princesses. If love at first sight feels outdated, the answer could be to add nuance, not erase romance entirely, but online, things took a life of their own.